I think a lot of people are guardedly optimistic about 2025.
We got movies, we got video games, we got TV shows we're looking forward to.
We kind of see woke on the back pedal, on the back foot, you could say right now.
You know, there was all these predictions, and there still are frequently, about how America's on the decline and China's on the rise. And the American century was the 20th century. The 21st century will be the Chinese century. We're a quarter of the way in. It's still the American century from over here.
Yeah, 2025, the year of reform.
Yes, please. Let's have that in the history books. Hello, welcome to the Pop Culture Contrarian with Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
We're excited to be coming to you live, not live, this will come out in a week, from 2025. This is our first episode we're recording in the new year. Andrew is doing interpretive dance on what 2025 will look like.
Indeed.
Yes. Our first episode will be coming out today. You'll be hearing about it. It's the Word or Hear Him, today being January 2nd. And then this episode will come out next week on January 9th.
Yeah, you should have already listened or watched Word or Hear Him.
Yes, by the time you're listening to this.
If not, go back and listen right now.
Yeah. But since this is our first day back in the office, we don't have too much for you. We're just going to kind of talk about what we're hoping for, what happened over break. Personally, starting with what happened over break, I was sick almost the whole time. I think most of us were.
Yeah, it definitely had sickness going on. Just about everybody that I know, both professionally and in family and friends. If there wasn't one person, it was half a dozen people who were sick in each group.
I hear a lot of people calling it the COVID hangover. It's like finally catching up with us.
I really think that makes sense. Yeah. I think there's some data behind that.
Yeah, you made a point earlier.
Yeah, there is some data behind it that suggests the lockdowns may have weakened communally our immune systems.
Yeah, our collective immunity.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, the last few years we have been life more or less business as usual. Yeah. But I would say this year, for sure, everyone was like full normal travel, people, everything. And it just seems like everybody got sick.
Yeah, I saw a joke that was, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think roughly 93% of America is sick right now.
Yeah.
That was about right. I was supposed to have 3 family Christmas events, and only one of them happened because of illness.
Yeah. If you're still sick and you need a nice, hot, warm mug of something to soothe your throat, go to patriotpostshop.us.
.com.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go to patriotpost.us to subscribe, patriotpostshop.com to buy.
To buy our coffee. And you can get our mug and our thermos and
a bunch of other stuff.
Yep. We'll help you feel better.
Yes. Good coffee always makes you feel better. That was actually a thing. Because I was sick, I was only taking medicine and stuff, and I wasn't drinking my coffee, and I had a caffeine headache.
Yeah.
And then one day I finally was like, or my dad said, you should drink some coffee. And I was like, oh, yeah. And my headache went away. I was like, oh, that's so nice.
Nothing like withdrawing from addiction.
Right, exactly.
Not realizing, I feel much better.
It's like, I forgot. I'm addicted to a psychoactive bean juice.
Yes, exactly.
So you have something against coffee.
All right, so that's kind of what happened over break. Of course, we celebrated Christmas. I had a Merry Christmas aside from the disease. How about y'all?
Yeah.
It was merry, mostly because I have young children, and it was magical for them. They're at the age now where it's just like coming alive. And my boy, he's not my youngest. We've been having the Santa Claus discussion. And in our household, we say that the story of Santa Claus is a fun make-believe story that helps us remember the real man, St. Nicholas, and his life and his contributions to the church and to Christianity. And that is basically how we handle it. And my boy asked me, he was like, but Santa Claus is real, right, Dad? I said, he's real in our imagination. And we left it at that. But he kept on insisting, it's so funny, that he was indeed real, Dad. He's real. I'm like, so, okay. You can choose to listen to Dad or not.
It's a fine line to walk, right? Because you don't want him going around telling all his peers that Santa Claus isn't real, and then you're that family.
Yeah, we are not Santa Claus evangelists,
right? Yeah.
As it were. So we do explain to our kids, hey, it's a fun story, and every family does it differently, and so it's not our place to tell other kids. It's their parents' job to tell them. Yeah,
my parents never made a big deal of Santa Claus when I was little, so I remember one of the first Christmases I walk in, see all the presents in the morning, and my mom says, Santa Claus delivered presents. And I was like, thinking it's some friend of theirs. I was like, oh, wow. Thank you to Santa Claus.
It's a real pal.
Yeah. So yeah, that was Christmas. We all had a good time, I think, I hope, certainly.
Yeah, it was enjoyable. Relaxing.
Yeah.
It's always great to take some time off.
It is.
And for us, for my family, I mean, we didn't travel this year, which is usually
nice.
we're traveling for Christmas, so it gets pretty hectic. This time we stayed put, and which was nice.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
We had fewer events this year than we have in the past, partially because we sort of have said, we put our foot down. We're like, we have little kids. We can't go to 15 events in one day.
Yeah, fair.
But also the families have
Spread out.
spread out in different days and that stuff. So it was it was less concentrated.
Yeah. All right, well, let's turn our focus away from 2024. That's old news. That's last year. It's 2025 now. We are a quarter of the way into this century now. Do y'all realize that? This is something I was thinking about on New Year's Day. You know, there was all these predictions, and there still are frequently, about how America's on the decline and China's on the rise. And the American century was the 20th century. The 21st century will be the Chinese century. Well, boo. We're a quarter of the way in. It's still the American century from over here.
Yeah. I think we've got a pretty good shot, especially with who's in office right now, of holding on to that. Yes, about to be. Speaking of that, we, being myself, Andrew, and Sterling, will be in D.C. on and around January 20th to hand out these guys, Patriot Post, America's News Digest. We're going to hope that you guys, if you come to see us in D.C., we'll take one of these and subscribe to our number one entity, brought to you by the Patriot Post. Is our show, The Pop Culture Contrarian. But we'll be in D.C. We will see the inauguration.
Yeah, we're getting to actually be in the venue for the inauguration even.
We'll likely be at the Trump rally on the 19th.
Yeah.
So for any of our fans, if you want to hang out in D.C., we'll be around. So come find us. And if you're not a fan and you're there hunting us down for nefarious reasons, feel free not to do that.
Yeah, feel free not to do that. Yeah.
How about don't?
Yeah. How about no?
Right.
Yeah, that's exciting. This is the first time I've voted for somebody who won, and I'm getting to go to his inauguration. That's kind of exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's historic for a number of reasons. Obviously, it's not too often that you have a president who serves non-consecutive terms.
This is the second time ever.
Right.
Yeah, we're one of the few in history to experience such a thing.
Of course, we don't know if more history will be made considering what happens to Joe in the next few weeks.
Yeah, that's true. Trump currently is set to be the 45th and then the 47th president, but it's possible he'll be the 45th and then the 48th.
Yeah. I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
in some ways,
we hope not.
It would be kind of hilarious.
A little bit.
I mean, in a messed up way, it would be kind of hilarious. It would steal that first woman president title and cheapen it, which I wouldn't want that to happen.
Right.
I think that first woman president should be somebody who deserves to be.
Well, I just don't want anyone to be president by default.
No.
Really.
No, of course not. I mean, the whole
just
DEI
to clarify
hire.
what we're saying here, Joe Biden is very, very old. And to say he has one foot in the grave might be understating things. And we're just a little worried, is he going to make it 18 more days to the...
I don't... There's nothing that indicates that he is in failing health.
No,
So,
not end of life for sure.
Yeah.
But.
So this is just hypothetical potentials.
Right. So I was thinking about that, though, about the inauguration. My mom pointed this out, that, in 2016, I was not a fan of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I didn't like him.
I was not either, by the way, and I did not vote for him in 2016.
Right, neither of us did. Did you, Thomas?
I did.
So Thomas is the only one who did.
Yeah.
But, I dismissed 90% of the lies the mainstream media told about Donald Trump in 2016, but that still left me believing a lot of lies about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And it just takes you a while, or it took me a while, and I think it's taken most people a while to realize just how badly and often and ruthlessly lies about Donald Trump were told at every opportunity throughout his entire political career.
He's probably the most oppressed, if that's the right word, attacked maybe.
You're right.
Demonized,
yeah, that's better, Thomas. President in history, in U.S. history.
Yeah. Like in 2016, January when he was being sworn in, I thought, or 2017, I guess, I thought he was actually colluding with Russia still.
The Russians?
Like
A lot of people did. Wait,
it's
but that
incredible.
was fake news.
That was such fake news. It was complete BS made up by Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. At least initiated.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Is this the beginning, the first episode of our third season?
This is the third season of the Culture
Technically, this will be
Contrarian.
the second episode, yeah.
Yeah.
Technically. Okay.
Technically, it is. Yeah, I guess you could say it's the second episode of the third season.
Yeah.
Because it's the third year.
Yeah.
Our first year, we did not have a complete year.
Right. We count from July in our first year.
Right. But we'll still call that the first season.
Yeah.
It's exciting. We've been doing this for a little while now.
Yep. Maybe we'll make some contacts in DC and finally start getting some good guests on.
We would love to have some guests. If you guys want to see guests, let us know who you want to see on the show.
Yeah.
Or if we should go on a show.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
we are open to any kind of recommendations.
Yeah.
And
Send me on the whatever podcast, say whatever podcast. They'll make fun of me the whole time. It'll be great.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Do it for the ratings.
Yeah,
Do it
exactly.
for the subscribers. Speaking of subscribers, be sure to like and subscribe and tell your friends about us. We
Yes.
really get a lot of legs when you tell people that you like our show. I know if I have a friend and I tell them about something I really care about, it's because I think it's great and I want them to experience good things too. And likewise, they do the same for me. So make sure you tell your friends about us. It's one of the best ways that we can grow if you really like what we're doing here, and we really appreciate it.
Yes. All right. So, inauguration, that's exciting. That's some news. There's other things happening in 2025. We got movies, we got video games, we got TV shows we're looking forward to. The one I'm probably most looking forward to, the project, it's a movie. The movie I'm most looking forward to in 2025 has got to be the new Superman movie.
Yes. And on that note, we can get into this later, but maybe we should ask ourselves the question, will 2025 see woke on the backpedal?
Well, it's starting that way for sure.
With Superman, I think so.
I'll be surprised if there's any woke BS in the Superman movie. Yeah.
Who is directing this?
It's James Gunn, who did the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Okay.
It's going to be good. I really look forward to that one.
The
Interesting.
guy who plays Superman's named David Corn Sweat, I think is how you say his name, and he's a big Star Wars fan. He's a big Superman fan, and I think the character's in good hands. So I'm excited for this movie. I think it'll probably be easily the best superhero movie of the year. It might be the biggest box office movie of the year too.
Does Marvel have anything it's coming out with this year?
Captain America 4, Brave New World with the Falcon is now Captain America.
Okay, so that's going to be a changing of the guard kind of a movie.
Yeah, we've already technically had the changing of the guard on the TV show, but Marvel has not had success with people watching the TV shows and then following along in the movie. So if they're smart, they'll reintroduce the whole concept.
Yeah.
So there's that. In general, those superheroes are, I think, probably less popular for sure than they were a decade ago, certainly. But, we've got Wicked Part 2 coming out this year as well. And
Wicked was a big success. We didn't cover Wicked. Maybe we ought to have, and maybe we still could. I don't know.
yeah, maybe if we cover it right before Wicked 2 comes out and then go see Wicked 2 as well.
Yeah, that's probably a good
Yeah.
plan. I know, Wicked's been on Broadway for decades,
Yeah.
and everybody seems to really like it. I've heard mixed things about, the whole wokeism versus, it's a story that was written a long time ago, so it's kind of hard to say, is it woke in the modern context?
Yeah.
There certainly are actors involved in it who were, but not to do a movie review right now.
Right. So, Thomas, you had kind of an interesting question earlier when we were preparing about.
Yeah, I was wondering, is woke? We kind of see woke on the back pedal, on the back foot. You could say right now, its influence has been kind of fought back, and it seems to be receding. We have examples of all these companies dumping DEI within their companies. Not every company, mind you. I did see over the break that Costco is kind of doubling down and
Oh, are
sticking
they?
with it. Yeah.
Well, we just got to point to Robbie Starbuck at him.
Yeah. There was also, I think, Dungeons and Dragons controversy over, I guess, some of its material rewriting or writing.
Not surprised to hear.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah, I haven't-
Disappointing,
elements.
not surprised.
I haven't followed the details on that, but it really seems to me like Wizards of the Coast, which is I think owned by Hasbro, but they make Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering. Those two kind of once upon a time bulwarks of nerdy, we don't care what we're supposed to do. We like this thing and we're going to enjoy it. That used to be what they are. And now they've been seemingly quite overtaken by woke social justice warrior people. I think there was a effort made to capture those institutions, I guess.
Do you think part of that is, I mean, this is kind of one of the age-old conundrums that seems to happen to these entities that start off smaller with a very dedicated fan base, and then they get like corporatized or something.
Yeah.
And because of that, there's this sense in which, well, either the thing that it was is somewhat watered down or broadened, or new elements are introduced to make it more palatable to the masses. It seems to be one of those constant cyclical like themes that play out with these kind of smaller, I don't know, entities, franchises or games or, you know, like you were saying, D&D, which it's been popular for a long time, but it still was kind of a niche thing.
Until the past 10 years, it was pretty niche.
Right. Now it's kind of, but has that exploding or going like mainstream made it less D&D?
Well, so here's the thing. I think D&D is something that's a little bit safe from wokeness. Yeah, maybe the people publishing the rules are woke. But, you know, when you're playing D&D, you sit at a table with your friends and you include the parts you want to include.
Yeah.
And the parts you don't want to include aren't included. And there's all sorts of rules and homebrew rules and even, you know, completely alternate systems that basically let you play D&D, but it's published by somebody else. It's a whole different rule book. It's a different game, but, you know, the same concept. You're sitting at a table with characters and rolling dice.
It's about your friends and your imagination and your story.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering, I was thinking as we were just talking about how the movies that we're looking forward to, superhero movies, et cetera, like the Superman movie, and we mentioned Marvel. How long the Marvel universe, or the MCU, as you know it, has existed
since 2008.
So is there a little bit of just fatigue?
Yeah, I think there's for sure fatigue. I mean, people have been predicting superhero fatigue for literally every year for the past 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's been more true probably every time they've said it than the previous time. I don't think you could say it was really true until after COVID, for sure. After the, you know, Avengers Endgame, I think that's when most people kind of tuned out of the MCU.
Okay.
It's kind of when I did. I still follow some of the projects that I like, but others I'm just like, I don't care about seeing that.
So I'm wondering if we're like on the cusp of, as woke is kind of fading, because I think woke was this, it almost took over and was forcing itself into everything, and people have finally reacted and say, no, we hate this, stop it. Which creates a perfect opportunity for new things to suddenly explode to the surface, I think, as far as ideas, concepts, new, you know, because they're almost freed from this mandated shackles that were put upon the culture of like, you must, you know, we used to joke about the check off all these boxes of DEI, you know. Now when you can free yourself from that, are we going to now start having some really fresh, new, cool, you know, games, movies, you know, these cultural elements that'll start to rise out of the kind of maybe the fading of woke?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I think what we've seen since, really, I'd say woke, you can say the tide turned for certain on election night.
Yeah.
And you've seen things like Trump's popularity has only gone up after the election. I think people were like, okay, great, we're done with that. We can say retard again, you know, things like that. But the projects that have come out since then have still been woke. You know, you've seen, like Netflix is releasing a movie right now that's about some battalion in World War II of black women that actually did good work and helped sort mail that was critical for the war effort. But they're making it out like these are the real heroes of World War II, these black women who sorted mail. And it's like, okay, Netflix, come on.
I mean, a lot of this stuff, they made I'm sure they made that show a year, maybe 2 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there'll be a little bit of time before we really see the fresh new stuff, if it's going to happen, to meet the new cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how many these newer non-Hollywood based studios, startup studios that, or they're not even startups anymore. They're starting to gain foothold.
Yeah, like Angel Studios is pretty polished these days.
Yeah, they've got Homestead out right now, which I'm going to see. We're not necessarily going to
I don't think we're
review that one, but I'm going to go see Homestead, and I'll let you know if it's any good.
My parents actually signed up for the Angels Guild, so they
Oh,
have
that's
the
great.
streaming service now.
That's such a cool idea.
Yeah.
I love the Angels Guild idea.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Is it a new streaming?
They have a streaming platform now, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
And then the guild, you get to vote on the stories that get made into film.
Yeah, so my dad said the way it
Interesting.
worked is they pushed a movie to him. They didn't give him a choice that was not published yet, and had him watch it. It wasn't full length yet. And then he had to review it, and the review was, does this, I think, bring light into the world or does it not? And if enough of the Angels Guild, which is like, it's got to be over 90%, says yes, it does, then they will go forward with that project. And if 70% say yes, it does, they're not going to go forward with it.
That's an interesting concept for. It's kind of a new concept for movie production. So you're taking away, or you're expanding, or democratizing to some degree the studio.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's certainly interesting. We'll see if, theoretically, I can kind of see this going two ways. Either it means every project is going to be a camel, which is what you call a horse designed by a committee, or every project is going to be incredible. And so far, the projects have been very good, especially for a studio that doesn't have millions and millions of dollars to throw at what they're making.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of goodwill behind them right now, but as they become a bigger player, that's going to change.
Yeah.
And it always does.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, those are, some of the things we're excited about. Speaking of the woke thing, though, I think one project I'm excited for with the current cultural tide we're experiencing is this. It was just announced Christopher Nolan is making the Odyssey, as in the Iliad and the Odyssey. Yeah, Homer's Odyssey.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and he's making that, and I think it's set for like 2027. We'll see when it actually comes out. I think it's just entering production now. So
That could be an epic.
Yeah, you can't do that with a woke worldview. That would be
right. You can't insert modern politics into the 4,000-year-old, however old, epic classic. One of the two most important pieces of fiction in Western civilization.
Yeah.
You should tell that the way it should be told.
Yes.
And we haven't seen it told, really professionally by Hollywood, at least not since special effects got to the point where they are now.
Oh, not in the last 4 decades.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
I
guess they did.
There's an Odyssey movie or
the Perseus series wasn't
Percy Jackson?
Yeah, isn't there elements where?
Oh, you're talking about Wrath of the Titans.
Yeah.
I think that's its own story. I think that's just Greek mythology. There's plenty of Greek mythology movies. There hasn't been an Odyssey story, I don't think.
Guess that.
Yeah.
I guess it would go back to
seems like I've seen a
50s
film
or something
that shows him coming home and having to shoot the arrows through the axes.
Yeah, one movie of that just came out where it's Odysseus just at the end of his journey. It doesn't tell the whole journey.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is snippets of the journey have been done, but not the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a long, meandering story. It'll be interesting to see how this movie turns out, whether they cover all 10 years of the journey or not.
I don't know if you could do that. Well, you could in a film, but you'd have to cut out a lot.
You might. It might be a movie that would benefit from having a part 1 and a part 2, actually.
Well, I would say with the trend of doing multi-part movies, that could easily be the case.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of things to be hopeful for. I think we're very excited to go to the inauguration. I think that's, we just had Christmas. We're about to have another one, the way I see it.
Yeah.
It should be interesting.
It should be interesting.
I don't know how that's going to feel. I mean, maybe when you're in D.C. with the majority of the crowd there excited for the new president, it's going to be a different feel from normal D.C., which is predominantly, leans left.
You're right.
Not that, when you're engaged in political conversations, it's going to come out. But other times, it's not necessarily there. I mean, there's a lot to see in D.C. with the museums and everything else that are enjoyable.
Yeah,
it's
going to not be doing much.
It's going to be no, you guys won't be doing much of that. It's going to be cold. I'm predicting pretty cold. Yeah, it should be fun times though.
Yeah, well, but especially even aside from our trip, which I'm excited for, just that first 24, 48 hours of the Trump administration. I'm hoping to see some big things happen, especially, Tom Homan's talking a big game about what they're going to do in terms of deportation on day one. I'm just like, go for it, man. We are rooting for you.
It'll be interesting to see how things unfold this year. It's going, I think a lot of people are guardedly optimistic about 2025. Feels that way more so than this time last year.
I think Wall Street's pretty optimistic.
Clearly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but there are, where is the economy going to go? Economically speaking, is it going to be better at the end of 2025 for Americans than it is now?
And there is a question of how bad is the resistance going to be? Is it going to be, leakers in the Trump administration undermining his every move? Is it going to be Congress undermining his every move? Or is it going to be what we've seen a little bit just here in the first couple days of the year of there was a horrible terror attack in New Orleans?
Yep. Yeah.
So, the question is there going to be a lot more of that this year? Hopefully not. We pray not.
Well, we're hoping, things that I would look forward to this year, an end to the war in Ukraine would be great.
Yeah. I think 95% chance it ends this year.
I hope it's, we'll see. There's still this situation in Israel. There's still hostages that Hamas has. Can those hostages finally, if they're alive, finally be returned, ended this conflict? We all would love to see the Middle East stabilize and this seemingly never-ending conflict finally end.
It is never ending, and I think the Bible basically assures us it will not end until Jesus returns. But, a lot of what's happened in the past year or so it was triggered by a horrible terrorist attack on Israel. But then since then, it's been a lot of rolling back of Iran's influence in the region, which is, I'm all for that.
Well, I'm wondering, I think part of it is Iran's internal instability, because I do think that is a thing. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, sometimes the governments that are feeling like they're losing control, they go to more extreme measures to try to.
That could be. And
I don't know if that is, because we know that Hamas and Hezbollah are proxies of Iran. Yeah. And if their aggression is a reaction or a result of what's happening in Iran, where it feels like it thrives on destabilizing the area.
Yeah.
And if that's what it was seeking to do.
Well, it just seemed like a lot of Iran's resources, which were granted to them almost explicitly by Joe Biden's administration, have been used up. And now the incoming administration is not going to be giving them billions of dollars as Joe Biden's administration did.
Well, yeah, he didn't directly give that. He released.
It's a fine line between directly giving them money and what he did.
Yeah, well, I think there is a line though.
Yeah, there is a line.
It does exist. I think what's more actually impactful, honestly, on that is probably what's going on with the fall of Syria, then, or at least the Bashir, who was the president, the dictator of Syria, and the way the war has drug on in Ukraine, both are Iran, and Russia. The two kind of are bosom buddies, you could say.
Yeah.
Both are, I think, financially don't have a ton of capital to work with right now.
Right. That's kind of my point, that they've kind of shot their shot, and now Trump's coming in and, last time Trump was in office, he killed the number 2 guy in all of Iran, like a dog.
Yeah.
He died like a dog and couldn't have happened to a better person, honestly.
Yeah. So there's that. Hopefully the situation with China, that's still, China is really still, I think, our biggest geopolitical foe.
Yeah.
How Trump goes about, engaging China is going to be interesting.
The tariffs are...
The tariffs threat. I also think it's really Taiwan is the big question.
Sure.
Yeah. It's a big question. We'll see. I would say the odds of Taiwan being actually in danger of invasion are much less this year than last year.
I agree.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Hope you guys are right.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing to see is Trump has put together one of the most diverse cabinets in modern American history.
It's also one of the youngest cabinets.
Yeah, so that he is reaching across the aisle big time.
Yeah. When we say diverse, we don't mean,
ideologically
gay black people. We mean
ideologically diverse.
Ideologically diverse.
So,
because we need real good new ideas.
Yeah.
Well, I think the reason why this is kind of a positive for a lot of Americans is we're tired of the division.
Yeah.
And to see a president who has been labeled the most divisive man in America be really actively seeking to reach out and try to bring America as a nation together in a way that we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of hope for, more collaboration, politically speaking, more of a kind of, instead of battle lines being drawn, more of a sense of like, let's communicate. Let's see if we can find common ground.
Or at least the battle lines being drawn more accurately, which is, I think that's the other thing about this cabinet that he's built is he's directly, like almost obviously putting people in charge of these bureaucracies that have been done wrong by that bureaucracy. So Kash Patel, had the FBI going after him and all sorts of stuff. And now he's going to be in charge of the FBI. And Tulsi Gabbard, it's very similar. And now she's going to be, I guess, not in charge of the FBI. What is her position? It's
National Intelligence.
National Intelligence. So, she's still going to be, she's going to be in a position to hurt the people who hurt her. Hopefully she doesn't do it maliciously, just what's necessary.
Well, I think the deep state, or the bureaucratic state, maybe a better way to put it, needs to be corrected.
Right. And it looks
reformed.
Like there's people being put in charge who have every reason in the world to want to correct it.
I think the word of the day would be reform. What we're hoping to see in Washington is a massive movement to reform an institution that has become a disservice to the country and to the American people for the most part, rather than it's supposed to be existing to serve our interests. It has morphed into something that's serving its own interest over and against often the people.
Yep. Well, I think reform is the note to end on. That's what we're hoping for this year.
Yeah, 2025, the year of reform.
Yes, please. Let's have that in the history books. All right. Well, we'll have more of a normal episode, I guess, for you next week. We'll figure out what we're going to be talking about, and I guess we'll see you then. Be sure to like and subscribe to us and to the Patriot Post. The Patriot Post is the oldest conservative news digest on the web. It's right and it's free, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
See you guys.